Japan has dominated the Women's Asian Cup so far, and many expect Na de shiko to win the competition. But with host Australia standing in their path, it won't be an easy final. In this video, I preview the final, looking at the impact of home advantage on the game, the tactical principles that make Japan so impressive, and what Australia can do to nullify the threat. Well, let's begin by taking a look at the impact of home advantage. The support for the Matildas in Australia throughout the tournament has been incredible, and that is reflected in the numbers. Whilst the tournament as a whole has already passed a significant 200,000 total spectators milestone, games not involving the hosts have accounted for less than half of that, averaging just 5,000 fans. And many of the spectators at those games are neutrals. As for the Matildas' support, games in Perth, the Gold Coast and Sydney drew in 44,000, 22,000 and a massive 60,000 respectively. And whilst the drop into the other side of the draw did hurt attendances in the knockouts, the final being in Sydney should see the fans return with expectation that it could be at the 83,500 capacity. So it's undoubted the stadium will be full of Matildas fans, and that energy and atmosphere can only help galvanise Australia to victory. And they'll hope to frustrate and irritate Japan. Japan are so good though, it might not matter. With 28 goals in 5 matches and only 1 conceded, Japan have taken this tournament by storm, wiping the floor with everyone they've faced. After an admittedly easy group stage including an 11-0 win over India, Japan moved into the quarter-finals where they faced the Philippines. Whilst the Philippines were good enough to frustrate Australia in the tournament opener, Japan beat them easily, scoring 6 goals without reply. This saw them reach the semi-finals where they'd faced South Korea, a team who'd had a really decent tournament and matched up well against Australia, but Japan crushed them 4-1 and that was their first goal conceded at the tournament. So they've been ruthless and clinical throughout, but how have they done it? So let's begin by taking a look at how Japan will line up in this final. So I think it's going to be quite similar to what they've gone for in other matches. In goal, of course, Sayaka Yamashita. The back four is a bit of a conversation here. Does Shimizu come back in with Sin Takahashi playing at right back, Koga coming in at centre half? Are they going to bring Shimizu back in? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, but I'm going to say that they will bring Shimizu back in at centre half, move Takahashi to, or bring Shimizu in at right back, I should say, Takahashi to centre half, Kumagai then at left centre half, and at left back, Kitagawa. Could see that going either way, but I think if they're going to try and edge the game technically, which is where I think they'll try and get the advantage, I think Shimizu is better suited for that, and they've seemed to rotate players in and out every other game so far. So I think they'll keep that up and bring Shimizu back in. As for the midfield three, there's a slight conversation. The nailed on, though, you'd think would be Nagano and Hasegawa. The only conversation here is what do you do about Hinata Miyazawa? Because you want a starter. Do you play her in this midfield three? And she's been really good in this kind of position. Or do you put her on the left wing in order to bring Tanikawa back into the side? There are options there. I think they'll keep Miyazawa in midfield. I think that midfield three has looked so impressive, particularly in the semi-final against South Korea. So I think they'll keep that the same. As for the front line, again, I think they're going to keep it quite the same. Hamano really impressed in the semi-final. Has had a strong tournament, so I think she'll start on the right. On the left, Aoba Fujino, another incredibly talented footballer, and I think has, again, shone in that semi-final match, but also throughout the tournament. And leading the line then, it's close, but I think they'll go for Riko Ueki, top goal scorer at this competition. They'll be hoping to extend her advantage in that award. And yeah, of course, has done incredibly well, so makes sense for her to lead the line in this final. And in terms of play style, well, of course, they line up in this 4-3-3. When they get forward, it shifts to almost a 2-5-3. So take a look at what they're doing. What they're tending to do is that they push this attacking line forward and quite narrow. They like to have these wingers quite narrow in their attack. Then we see these wing backs or full backs pushing into these wide positions. The midfield three into this kind of role with 2 more advanced players and 1 player sitting slightly behind them like a pivot. And then you've got these 2 centre-halves on the halfway line. So they look to build up from this kind of shape. And what they look to do is force these wide overloads with these combination plays. So what you often see is combinations here between the left back, in this case Kitagawa, Fujino and Miyazawa. They can combine nicely to create space in behind. Nice little dink ball, nice little combination for Miyazawa. Ball down the line for Kitagawa. That combination is really difficult to deal with. So they create these wide triangles with Hamano, Hasegawa and Shimizu as well on this side, where again, similarly, Hamano getting in behind, Hasegawa breaking through, Shimizu overlapping, those kind of moves. What they can also do by creating this width in the game is create space actually in central areas. So pushing players wide is obviously going to force the defence to push wide with them. What this then creates is a bit of pocket of space in the midfield. What they're able to do very nicely is get players close to this central striker quite quickly. So if it's on this right hand side, maybe players have dragged across here to create a bit of space to drag the opposition out, and then you can play it inside. And there's lots of tidy combinations in zone 14 to create opportunities in the penalty area, in and around this sort of area of the field, and they're so good at penetrating centrally. It allows them to get shots away from dangerous positions, and it allows them to control the game while creating consistent, high quality chances. So what can Australia do to stop Japan? Well, their run so far in this tournament hasn't been perfect. They struggled a victory in the tournament opener against the Philippines, and despite a 4-0 victory over Iran in match day 2, they were in a position where a thrilling 3-3 draw in the final game against South Korea saw them finish just second in the group. And this gave them a matchup against North Korea in the quarter-finals. They emerged victorious from a hard-fought battle where goalkeeper Mackenzie Arnold was the crucial player. Australia mustered just 4 shots in that entire game and scored 2 goals, while North Korea only scored once from 25 attempts. However, it was a much better performance in the semi-finals against China, where without a scored penalty, it probably would have looked much more convincing. So how can Australia go about beating Japan? Well, let's begin by taking a look at the lineup. In goal, I'm expecting it to be Mackenzie Arnold. Obviously, didn't start the first few matches, but has come back into the side and been important. In the back four, couple of decisions to make here. Right back, it's obviously going to be Carpenter. Now, you're going to assume Cat is going to play, but is it going to be at left centre half like in the China game, or will it be at left back? I think the performance against China was so much stronger. So for me, they'll bring Catley back into the side, and they'll keep Torpy in at left back. Alongside of then, it is going to be Claire Hunt, who has had some shaky moments at this tournament, but overall I think is still their best option for that position. In the midfield 3, I think it's going to be fairly obvious it's going to be Alana Kennedy. Alana Kennedy has been incredible at this tournament, not least her defensive efforts, where Australia like to do this with splitting the centre halves and pushing Kennedy between them, but also getting forwards and scoring goals. And she's been really good on the edge of the box here, picking up the ball, and is currently the second top goal scorer. So if she could score 2 goals in this match, she would be able to take home the golden boot, which would be quite amusing. As for the other 2 midfielders then, I really don't know what they're going to do in these positions. So they played Cooney Cross in the semi-finals. I think that was really strong. But I think what they've got to try and do in this match is be physical with Japan. The way that Japan are going to play is very technically strong. But for Australia, and while they dominated China by being very technically strong, but this is going to be a game where they've got to be physical. And so for me, I think you've got to bring Van Egmond into the side. And I just can't see a way you drop Katrina Gorey. So unfortunately, dropping Cooney Cross then to the bench. I think you need the physicality and the height, really, of Emily Van Egmond. As the front line then, it's going to be Fowler on the right-hand side. A big improvement on Raso since she has come into the starting lineup. Up front then, it will be Sam Kerr. Again, Sam Kerr, legendary player, so good, has been so important for them in the knockouts. And if they are going to win this game, it's probably going to take another Sam Kerr goal. And on the left, it's going to be Caitlin Ford, a struggled to perform this season, but did look much better in that semi-final and quarter-final. Starting to come into form now is Caitlin Ford. So how should they set up? Well, for me, they've got to be narrow and compact. So if we're thinking about their defensive shape, I think we're going to see them use this 4-4-2 they did recently. So the centre-halves obviously tucking in, the full-backs tucking in. It's going to be very narrow, this kind of narrowness where you want to force Japan wide, basically. And I'll talk about in a moment why, but it's going to be this 4-4-2 shape where Gorey presses up with Kerr. It's another reason you have to have Gorey in this side, is that Gorey can press up well with Kerr. You tuck into this 4-4-2 type shape, very narrow, make life difficult for Japan. And what you're trying to do here is suffocate Japan, but the way that most teams suffocate is trying to force them inside. You don't want to force Japan inside, because Japan are very good at operating in these central areas, as just discussed. But if you can force them wide and pin these wingers wide, and they're trying to swing crosses in up against Catley and Hunt, you're going to win that every time. And so they've got to try and force Japan into those difficult situations. Be narrow and compact, prevent that central penetration. A lot of the time, what Japan are looking to do, if we go and find a football in this game, we can look at what they're going to do. So they're going to try and get players into these kind of areas. Now, look how deep Australia need to be in this kind of match at times. They're going to try and draw Australia to one side, like so, to create then space. So what they like to do is they push the fullbacks high. They're going to push both fullbacks quite high, have these two centre-halves then. And what they're looking to do is create these wide triangles to draw Australia across like so, and then create space in these central areas where they can combine quickly and break then into these kind of positions. The best way to avoid that is not allowing it to happen. So if the ball's back here with Saki Kumagai, and Australia are playing this 4-4-2 type shape, and they're very disciplined in their structure, it's going to be difficult to play passes in these kind of positions without someone jumping in front of them or without someone being able to intercept. So they've got to be narrow and compact. They've got to be able to suffocate Japan, but suffocate them into those wide positions. When they do get the ball then, Australia have got to be direct. Japan defending this sort of 2-1 rest defence. And what we'll often see is that Gori's going to join this defence. So it is going to be Sam Kerr isolated. But if you can get the ball here, and Hunt can play this down the channel, and you can let Kerr run off the shoulder and in behind Kumagai, that is their best chance for me of being able to get something against Japan in this game. So they've got to move the ball quickly, they've got to be direct, and they've got to use the transitional threat. Japan are a little bit open in transition, hasn't really been exposed yet this tournament, but if Australia can move that ball quickly and look to break in behind, that's how they can hurt Japan in this game. So that leaves just one thing left to do, and that is predict this game. Now, I've had a really strong record on predictions at this tournament. Before the tournament, I did my tournament preview, and I correctly predicted all the semi-finals and the final, of course. So I'm quite happy with how I've done so far. I correctly predicted the scoreline prediction for Australia-China on stream as well. So had a good record thus far. So yeah, I feel a bit of pressure. I want to get this one right. Ahead of the tournament, I said Australia would edge it, and I'm tempted to stick by that prediction. I think if Australia play the way that I have mentioned in this game, I think they can absolutely get something. I think the added bonus of the home crowd being there is going to play into this game. I do think Japan are an incredibly strong team, and it's a tough prospect to try and stop them, but I think if they play the way that I've suggested, I think if they are able to nail their markings, they're able to do their assignments well and deal with the threat and stop Japan coming inside, there's every chance they can get a goal on transition and they can be defensively solid. We've not really seen Japan play against a top quality team. South Korea tried to be a little bit more defensive. I think they arguably went too defensive and offered very little in terms of transitional threat. But even then, the goals early in that game came from South Korea overcomplicating it and trying to play out, and Japan pressing super aggressively and turning the ball over. They've got to do the simple stuff right, Australia, but if they do, I can absolutely see them winning this game. So I'm going to say it's going to be tight. I'm going to go for Australia 2, Japan 1. That's my prediction for the final. Do get your prediction in the comments down below, and make sure to join us live on stream for the game tomorrow. It's going to be a super exciting matchup between two top sides, so make sure to join us there. It's live from 8:45 UK time and a 9 AM kickoff. Very excited for it. Make sure to join us there. That, though, is everything from us today. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have and you want to go back and watch the preview for this tournament and see how close I was with my predictions, go and check that out. That'll be on screen now. That, though, is everything. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.